Welcome to Patty's Place, a place where we'll talk about grief, dementia, and caregiving. I'm your host, Lisa. I named this podcast in honor of my mom, Pat, who passed away from dementia a little over 2 years ago. So grab your cup of tea, your cup of coffee, if you're having a really bad day, a glass of wine, and come join us as we talk about things. And just so you know, you're not alone. That's what we're here for. So today, my guest is Teresa Evans. She is an author, and also she was an ICU nurse as well, too. So welcome, Teresa, to Patty's Place.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, we're happy to have you too. Your book is called Choosing to Die, a daughter's story of supporting her mother's end of life through assisted death. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how the book came about.
I'm Canadian, but I've lived in the United States since I was 18, but all of my family lives in Canada.
Okay.
And my mother had a tricky childhood and a lot of health issues that sort of plagued her. And then she had a heart attack when she was 60. And her health just never really bounced back. She did have open heart surgery, but she had multiple health issues that were slowly but surely leading to a decline in her quality of life, to the point where just before, I would say 2 years before her 80th birthday, she was really, most of her days were spent in what I would call suffering and wishing for some relief from that. And we had tried every medical intervention known to man and every non-medical intervention that we could come up with. And one day I just said, you know what, Mom? You live in a country where you don't have to suffer. If this is intolerable for you and you want to explore MAID, medical assistance in dying, I said, I'm not trying to off you. I don't want you to think that by any means.
Right.
But I said, I do want you to know that you do have a choice. I personally, I think the worst place is to feel backed up against a wall with no choice.
Yes,
and I didn't really know that she would explore it, but she did. And then she came back and said, yep, I'm going to do it. Okay. And that was a little bit shocking. I mean, of course, I supported her 100%. So that's how this story started. And this was in 2020. So COVID was really raging at that point. And I had lost my job, which was a travel job anyway. So
yeah,
I hopped in my car and I drove to Ontario, and I spent 3.5 months with her and my two sisters before she laid down and died on her 80th birthday.
Oh, okay. Okay. So in Canada, this is legal.
It is. It's legal in Canada, and it's legal in 14 states in the United States. And there are 12 states that have it on the docket trying to get some kind of legislation through. So.
Okay. Yeah, my mom used to talk about that too way before she got sick and stuff, because she always looked at it as your quality of life. You know, what's that quality with it? So I completely understand on that side of it. So why did you want to write the book?
It was such a remarkable experience for me to live that last 3.5 months with Mom, and also as a critical care nurse. And I've just been around a lot of people when they're leaving their bodies, and I've seen how it can go if there have been thoughtful conversations beforehand between all of the family members and the person who's leaving. And I've seen how it can go when there hasn't been any thought given to the fact that we are all going to die one day. And I really wrote the book, first of all, just to honor my mother and share our story. I am an advocate for MAID, of course. I don't feel that everybody should choose MAID, but I do feel that everybody should have that choice. And I want to, more than anything, just get people talking about the fact that one day we will all die. And how do we show up for somebody who's getting ready to take that journey? I'm hoping that this book will spark those conversations. And from the feedback that I've gotten already, a lot of people have been I wish I'd read this book before my mother died. I wish I'd read this, so I think it's serving its purpose so far.
Well, that's good. So what is MAID? What does that stand for?
So medical assistance in dying is a program that was first legalized in Quebec in 2015 and now all over Canada in 2016, where you can ask for medication that will actually cause your death.
Okay.
And you have to be evaluated by 2 independent doctors. If there's any doubt about your mental capacity, you also have to be evaluated by a psychiatrist.
Okay.
You have to be a Canadian citizen. If you're doing this in Canada, you have to have a health card, a Canadian health card. You have to be of sound mind. So you have to be able to give consent right at the time of when you receive the medication even. So there's never any forcing involved. You can change your mind at any time. You're reminded constantly that this is totally fine to change your mind. And so you have to be able to give consent. And you need to be suffering from a condition that is not going to get any better. It's clearly not going to improve. If anything, it's just going to continue to get worse. I think initially they had a 6 months. I know in the United States there's a 6 months time period, sort of aligns with if somebody goes on to hospice, but I believe that is not the case in Canada anymore. So my mom easily met all of that criteria. Mm-hmm. And so she received a cocktail of medications. She chose what day she wanted to die. She said, "When should I do this?" And I am like, "Do it on your birthday, Mom. Why don't you do it on your birthday? Do it on the same day you came in." I mean, it was, it was within months of her birthday. And I mean, how do you choose, right?
Right.
I don't think anybody really wants to die, but I think people become exhausted when the physical, mental, and emotional suffering just becomes so overwhelming. I think it's a little bit different when you have dementia because you're not always aware. I actually helped open a dementia unit in a long-term care facility and Alzheimer's unit, and worked in that unit for 2 years. And it's a different type of suffering. I think oftentimes it's more difficult for the family than it is for the person that has dementia.
I would agree with that because they don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
There's that initial period where you do know that something's not right anymore, but you usually slip through that period. You move through that period and then you're just not aware anymore that. Yeah. So I think what made MAID, I mean, actually a lot of people who have dementia or have a history of dementia in their family really want to be able to access MAID. And this is one of the ongoing debates in Canada right now, is because actually if you have dementia, you can't access MAID because you can't give consent at the end.
No, you can't. You really can't. You can't. And my mom and dad had done the powers of attorney years before, and that's actually how we got my mom diagnosed. And it was kind of funny, not funny, but I don't know, lack of a better word, but my dad and I were trying to do some stuff with the bank, and the bank was like, no, she has to give her approval. And we're like, she has dementia. I could sit right next to her on the phone and tell her what to say. I mean, I appreciated that they were protecting her rights, but it was like, I don't think they understood. So my dad and I were like, all right, we're just going to leave everything right now,
Yep.
Yeah. It's like, no, she'll say whatever I want her to say, and I don't want to do that to her, it's just crazy, the lack of understanding with it. So you said you had 2 sisters, were your family on board with your mom with this choice?
They were. It was the 3 of us just they live close to Mom in Ontario, and the three of us just rallied. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't. I mean, we didn't spend Mom's last months crying and wishing it were different. We just decided to show up for her and make it as joyful of a time as we could. I mean, of course, we were experiencing a heavy load of anticipatory grief.
Mm-hmm.
And that would seep through every once in a while. But rather than, we knew that once Mom left, we would have time to process our own grief. And again, I've just being with families, members, I think, and I write about this in the book, I think that oftentimes we confuse our grief. We think that our grief is the way the person who's leaving is what they're experiencing also. And we sort of lay our grief on top of that person. And I think they're two separate events, and it's completely different for the person that's leaving. And we really wanted Mom to know that every good thing that she had ever done as a mother, and just literally love her out of her body without any judgment. And we dealt with our grief after Mom left. I mean, Mom was grieving too. She was grieving the fact that she didn't know if how she would see us again.
That's true.
So we were actually helping her work with her own grief. I think we all believe that death is really a transition. So none of us really thought of it as a real ending, and just more of a transition. And we would have to access our communication with Mom in a different way.
I think that's really true because, my mom always believed, so then I kind of believe she taught me that, like, the person's still with you, just in a different form. And even like before she died, weeks, even almost a couple months before, she started seeing like family members and that. And I just went along with her when she would talk about them. I'm like, oh, who's here? And stuff. So she wasn't scared. It brought her comfort, and it brought me comfort because I believe they were there with her, with it. And so I still believe she's with me, in different ways with that. Well, that was good that your sisters and all you were on the same page, because sometimes families aren't.
Right.
With that,
I think we decided that I think for all of us, even if we hadn't agreed with Mom's decision with MAID, we all could see how much she was suffering. And it was just about supporting her, not about whether we supported her decision, but whether we supported her.
I think that's a good distinction to make, that you're doing it for her. With that. And that anticipatory grief, I can relate to that, because I always tell people I lost my mom years before I physically lost my mom. And that's knowing, like, there would be different things. Like, my mom used to call sometimes, like, literally one day, I think it was like 30 times she called me, and and people would always say, you don't have to answer it all the time. And I would say, I know. And if I couldn't, if I was at work or something, I wouldn't. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to answer it, because I knew there was going to come that day where she wasn't going to be able to do that anymore. And so,
absolutely.
So it was like, I knew that. And it did. It came that day where they called, and somehow my mom had dialed numbers that were, we had one of those phone, like landline, and she just had to press a button to call me or call my dad. And somehow she dialed some other person's number. And luckily they figured out, where she was calling from. And they called the facility to say, hey, we could tell she has dementia or something, and then we took the phone out. But that whole anticipatory grief, I think in some ways, if you're able to recognize it, I think it helps a little bit as you're going through the process.
I agree with you. And I think I mean, I can only speak for me. It made me very thoughtful about, when I would be with Mom, when I was with Mom, when I would look in her eyes, I would really look in her eyes. Like I knew I really wanted to see her because I knew that the time was limited. And I don't think that we're always, coffee delivery.
Oh, that's even better.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, our lives are full of distractions, of ways to get distracted. And um, this what this did for me, I don't think I've ever been present for anything the way I was present for my mom for those last 3 months of her life.
I would agree with that. I can relate to that because with dementia, they live in that present moment. So I was forced to be in that present moment with her, especially like the last week when we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
You're just, that's all that exists for you with that. So what do you hope readers will take away from your book?
Well, like I said, I really hope that this book will spark conversations around end of life issues. Compassion and Choices is the United States organization that is lobbying and helping educate people about assisted death here in the United States. And they say really anyone over the age of 18 should have advanced directives in place, a durable power of attorney for healthcare, a durable power of attorney for business affairs, for your bank account, etc. And so I plan on getting very involved in Compassion and Choices. I'm still working, and getting the book out is a full-time job.
Oh, yes.
I was just at a writing workshop, and I mean, I had no idea what I was getting into. Writing the book is one thing, but getting the book out there is a whole different animal. And they were saying, when you have a book that's been published traditionally, you might have 30 to 50 people involved in getting that book out, from, the editors all the way through to the marketing. But if you're independently publishing a book, you are all 30 of those people.
Yes.
So it's been like a full-time job. And I just feel like I feel so close to my mom because I just feel like we're doing this together. I know she would be so excited about this. And so it feels like this big journey that we're on together. And I wasn't physically living close to my mom for most of my life. So while we talked all the time, I only saw her once, maybe twice a year in a good year, because I was over 1,000 miles away from her. So to spend that last 3 months with her, and now I feel like we're together all the time, working on getting this book out. So I do hope that the book inspires families and individuals to reach out to their people, whoever their family is, right? And start to have these conversations.
And you said that you wrote this from the point of view because your mom was a master gardener. So you talk a lot about gardening and things like that within the book.
Yes.
So how does is the garden is like a healing place. So can you describe that? Like how is that written for you that way?
Well, Mom asked, she was such a wonderful gardener. She had huge vegetable gardens when we were growing up. And then for the later years of her life, a beautiful flower garden. And while I was there, she asked me for that last 3 months if I would put her garden to rest for the season. And so, of course, I was thrilled to do that. And as I was working in the garden, I started noticing that everything I was feeling, I was witnessing in nature. So nature just became a giant metaphor for what we were experiencing. And I realized that it's just all part of the cycle of life. I mean, we can't really have life if we don't death is part of life. And there's times where we're growing, and then there's times where we're decaying, and it's all a natural part of the cycle. And again, I'm hoping that my book, so what I did was, as I started writing the book, I couldn't not talk about the garden. And all of a sudden it just became that I was writing our story through the lens of what a plant would be going through. And
Oh, okay.
so I made a list of all of the plants in Mom's garden, and each chapter focuses on a different perennial. And as I'm
Oh.
telling the story of what's happening in the house with my sisters and with Mom and our journey of saying goodbye, the plants are also getting ready to they're dropping their leaves, they're throwing their seeds. It's fall, right? So the same process was going on. And so I share a lot of botany in the book.
Well, that's kind of neat because it is. It is the cycle of life. We don't like to think about it, but it is really true with it. So we get
Yep.
gardening tips too. Then a little
You do. You get
gardening
gardening tips.
tips.
You learn a lot of botany. There's actually a glossary at the back of the book with all the botanical terms in it. So
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
yeah,
So, what do you think was the hardest part of this journey for you and for your mom?
uh, I think it was. I thought it was going to be, that moment when we laid down with her and she received the medication, but that was, I say in the book, I don't know if I can find it, but Mom had asked us, she said, now girls, if you feel like you're going to fall apart, don't just leave the room, because she didn't want to have to take care of us, while she was leaving her body. And I say, we didn't fall apart. We fell into the magic and the mystery of the moment. We laid down with her like kittens. We just snuggled around her, and she just quietly and peacefully took her last breath and left her body. I think, again, anticipatory grief can be a heavy load. We all experience it in different ways. It's an odd kind of knowing to know the exact day and time your mother is going to die. And so there's a little bit of a countdown of, I say when I got there, we had 86 days, which felt like 86 days felt like it was going to be plenty. But as each day, as we got closer, it felt like the days were just flying by. Some days it felt like they were never ending. And those were the days where maybe for me, I was more preoccupied with the reality that Mom would be gone soon. And again, I carried that. We tried to carry that. Not that we didn't talk about it, but it wasn't the major topic. Mom loved fossil hunting. I took her on a fossil hunt a couple weeks before she died. She loved bingo. So she wasn't vital enough to go out and play bingo in the bingo hall, but we set up a bingo game. She loved, she had a plant, that her Christmas cactus, that we ceremoniously split into 3 pieces and repot it. And she wanted to knit scarves and hats for all of her grandchildren and all of her great grandchildren, which was a lot of knitting. The 4 of us were doing a lot of knitting during those months. But to her, that was a tangible way, I describe it as a tangible way of wrapping her love around, each one of her grandchildren and her great grandchildren and her children. So she taught me a lot about gardening during that time too. So we really used the time to we had a birthday party that was for all of us, like the last birthday party with, celebrating each other while Mom was still here. So I think the hard part is always just knowing that I'm not going to be able to call Mom up and say, what was the recipe for that carrot cake, Mom?
Exactly. Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what.
Did you find yourself sometime? I mean, I suppose because it was drawn out with your mom, but even though I knew very much that Mom was gone, I would still, months after, I would think, oh, I just need to, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, Mom's not, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, because my mom didn't know who I was, but I could still physically go see her. And I went to go see her every day. And every once in a while, she would have a lucid moment. Like she'd look at me and she'd say, I know this is really hard on you. And I knew that was,
Mm-hmm.
but I always kind of just went with her after a while, like whatever she said. I was so glad I paid attention to all her stories about her family and everything. So because she thought she was back when she was little, she thought that the memory care was her grandma's house. And so my dad and I just went with that. We're like, yeah, you're grandma's house, So I was glad I paid attention. But that is what I miss the most now that, she's physically gone. I miss just picking up the phone and calling her. Her and I used to watch TV together. She used to, she used to have all the gossip magazines and, things like that. Like she would call me, put this on. Did you hear about this? I miss that kind of stuff. Or like, she taught me how to bake and cook and all that. And, sometimes when I'd come over, she'd be like, okay, you need to, we're going to make this recipe because you roll out stuff better. I don't use this rolling pin anymore, and stuff like that. And that's the stuff you miss, just being able to call and talk to them about whatever,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was hard because she didn't know, but then, but she was still physically there. So I could still see her. I could still get something out of it. But you talk about like that knowing, because hospice had told us when they knew she had like about a week left. And that was like, that in a way that was like a countdown, because like I knew, she was only going to be a few more days or a few, and I was with her when it happened. But my mom, being my mom and the caregiver, people ask me what was the exact date, time that and I was like, I don't know, because she went when I had closed my eyes for a little bit. And I knew she did that on purpose because she didn't want me to hear her last breath. I just knew it. And so I wasn't upset about that. But I know that she knew I was with her, with that. With that part. So, so we learn about gardening and everything for that. It sounds like you and your sisters had a very, I don't want to say a nice time, but a very special time with your mom then for those last 3 months.
It was a remarkably special time. I mean, Mom wanted all of her ducks in a row. We totally repainted and cleaned her house. We sold everything that she wasn't using. And of course, families. I talk about this, just like gardens, just like plants, families, each plant has its own timing. Each human being has its own timing. And I know, like one of my sisters felt when Mom was encouraging us to get rid of her stuff. She said, get rid of my stuff. I want all of this taken care of. And she had the realtor, got the realtor, and the house went up for sale literally 5 days after she died.
Oh,
wow. She wanted all of that stuff taken care of. She had given away the things that she wanted people to have. And we were kind of lucky because a guy had moved into town where Mom lived, and we put our first ad up on Marketplace for some of the kitchen stuff, and he bought it all. And he said, he said he just moved into town and he needed everything. And my sister's like, well, Wesley, that was his name. If you can wait, say like 18 more days, we might be able to help you out. So basically all of Mom's furniture and apartment went over to him. I said, if we ever really miss Mom's stuff, we can go visit Wesley.
Yeah, there you go.
But one of my sisters I think she felt like we were sort of getting rid of Mom faster by getting rid of her stuff, although we were just doing what Mom wanted. And so those moments came up, of course, like they do in all families. But rather than get reactive about it, I was just like, I understand that. And, have a conversation with Mom and see what she wants. Because if we should slow this up, we think we're just doing what Mom wants, but let's just double check. And so as long as we kept coming back to not what we need necessarily, still honoring that, but more, what does Mom need in this moment? What does she want? If she wants us to sell everything in the house tomorrow, then let's do it. Let's keep some sheets for her bed. And so, yeah, it was, and we set the night before, we created a beautiful altar, and we hung fairy lights, and we turned this space into this just sacred, what we felt was a sacred space for Mom's actual leaving.
That sounds beautiful. It really does. I know a friend of mine had a similar feeling that your sister had after her mom had passed, and they were cleaning out stuff, her and her family, and she just started crying because she felt like she was throwing her mother away, just because it was her things and stuff. And I think that's just a normal reaction to know, like, okay, I'm going to keep this, but what do I do with this other thing? It just, because it's their things, you feel like it.
I think I have one daughter, and she's 40, she'll be 47 in June. Hard to believe, but I find myself now at the age of 66, I'm really being careful about what I bring into my house. And after just going through this experience with Mom and seeing how people struggle to get rid of the person who's left, to get rid of their belongings, and that feeling that that's a piece of them. But I'm not attached to things that way. I mean, I'm not saying I don't love beautiful things, because I do, but I also, it's not hard. I'm more of a purger than a saver.
Okay.
And I am helping a gentleman right now go through his house after his wife died a couple of years ago. And they have a big house, and they had a lot of stuff. And I don't want my daughter to have to go through boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. I mean, when I leave, I want her to spend her time walking the beach and fossil hunting and being in the woods, mourning me, not through getting rid of a lot of collections of things. So I'm trying to be, just for me personally, it made me very mindful about what do I really need? And, it's funny because I would say it's been 5 years for me now with Mom, and things of Mom's that she had given me that I thought I would never part with. She had a beautiful medicine pouch that she was very close with the Native Americans that lived in that area with the Aboriginals, and they had made her a medicine pouch, and she gave that to me. But last year, I just thought, I don't need this anymore. I'm done with it. My journey of needing to hold it, to feel close to Mom, is over. And I asked my daughter, I said, would you like this? And of course she was like, oh, I would love to have it, Mom. So it's hers now. And, and I said, and know that when you're finished with it, if a time comes where it's not necessary to be in your space anymore, it's okay. Grandma would be fine with that. It's like, you don't have to have this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, when we were going through my mom, we had to do it twice because my dad sold their house, when she first went into memory care. And then again, it was all her things in her room in memory care. But I always, in my mind, I erred on the side of, if I wasn't sure, I kept it because I thought, well, I can always go through it and get rid of it later. And I have done that, even with clothes and different things. I'm like, no, this is okay. I can do this with it. So where can someone purchase your book, Choosing to Die, A Daughter's Story?
You can find the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Tertulia. My own website is Teresa with an H, teresaevans.com. And you can purchase the Kindle version right off my website.
Okay.
You can purchase the audio version from Audible.
Okay.
It's a beautiful audio version of the book. So, all the usual suspects, you can find it, and on my website.
Okay. Well, we will definitely put all of that information on there. So thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a beautiful conversation.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it immensely.
So I hope everyone has enjoyed this conversation that we've had. So make sure you leave us a review or add us to your subscriptions on YouTube, and hope you enjoyed your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, or your glass of wine, and join us again for another episode of Patty's Place.